Hi everybody, I'm Phil Fatika and welcome back to the Millcreek Government Channel. We have two very special guests for you today. Two ladies, two women whom I'm sure you are very familiar with. Let us start on your left. Let us introduce you to Linda Lyons-King. Linda is the Executive Director of SafeNet. I know you've heard of that. And sitting in the middle is Suzanne Kulagowski. She is the Director of Outreach and Medical Programs from SafeNet. Thank you for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody's heard of SafeNet. Everybody pretty much knows where it's located. But just in case they haven't, you're located physically where and what do you do? So let's start with you're located physically where, and then Linda, what do you do?
Okay, we are located at 1702 French Street. So it's actually on French Street is our main administrative building. And then we do have a shelter campus, which includes transitional housing, our big backyard, and some other facilities, and that's in a downtown location.
Okay, okay. And you do what?
Well, we started.
I know you do a lot.
We do a lot. We started as a shelter, and then we have gone on to expand our services to meet the needs of victims. So we have legal services, and we have a number of outreach services, including outreach to the hospitals. We have services for children, and we have long-term, non-residential counseling, and in individual and in groups.
Is SafeNet a patented name? It's not everywhere. It's just Erie. That term, SafeNet.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's so apropos for what it is that you do. You provide that safety net for those people who, and you said, abused. Is that correct?
Abused, yes.
Sexually, physically,
All.
socially, mentally, yes,
Right.
everything.
Right.
Primarily women.
Primarily.
Okay, primarily. You've been in existence how long?
40 years, probably coming up close to 41 years.
Has it been that long?
Yes.
And you
Yes.
started why?
Well, we started as a result of a meeting of Church Women United, Catholic, Jewish, and Protestant women, and in 1973, there were no shelters for women, and certainly no shelters that would take women and children. And these lovely church women said that is unacceptable, and so they got together, and within 9 months, they had found a building and they'd opened a shelter, which accepted women or children. But the big shock to them was that more than 75% who came to them were women who had been abused or battered. They thought they would be women who were in transit who had run out of money, or, I don't know what they thought, but it was a shock that so many were abused.
I was just going to say that. And doggone it, it was probably their fault too. At that time?
At that time,
it was their fault. Suzanne will use you, or Sue will use you. Hey, you're causing this, there was still that 50s carryover from the man as the worker and provides the living, and I'm allowed to, and that's okay because that's the way it says, and no matter where you look, even some religions will tout that as a strong, but you take off on any one of those.
We did see a lot of that, and we still see a lot of that.
Okay.
There's still a lot.
That's disheartening to hear.
It really is. There's a lot of blaming on the victim in this. A lot of times it is women. It's most prevalent women between the ages of 18 to 44. We do have men that are victims as well, and that can be anything with domestic violence is what we focus on. And so it could be anybody in an intimate relationship. It can be a blood relationship, and it can be a heterosexual, homosexual relationship. Anything. We will meet the needs of those clients and what they request and options that are best for them. But we see a lot of the victim blaming still in our society. There's a lot of things even just in the recent years that have come up in media, that really focuses on, well, why does she stay in that relationship? We're really trying to get the community and everyone to look at it a lot more of, well, why does he do that? Why is that person abusive, rather than putting all that blame and emphasis on the victim.
Right. We don't want to let this go too far without having you tell us that there's a phone number that they can call, there's a website they can go to, because they need to contact, not necessarily the two of you, but you will get somebody 24/7, 365, right?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
the number is, the website is what?
It's www.safeneterie.org.
SafeNetErie, one word, .org. Okay.
And our hotline number, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, holidays. It can be 3 o'clock in the morning. And that number is 814-454-8161.
Okay, because this goes everywhere that Time Warner Cable is going within our Erie County area.
And all of our services are free.
I was just going to say that they are free. Okay, so let's use Phil. No, let's use you.
Okay.
You have endured this for some time, and everybody's telling you, yeah, but you know he's a good guy, and you know really, and how come? And so where's the point where things just go break, and I can't do that anymore? I've got to bail.
Everybody's different, and so what I always, in meeting with clients and even in doing presentations in the community, what I tell everybody is just because what's good for you is not the same for me. And so you might leave 5 times and then you're finally done. I can't do this anymore.
Right.
Maybe on my end, maybe there's children involved, maybe there's cultural things that are holding me into the relationship. Maybe it's finances, whatever it may be. And maybe I'm in that relationship for many years and I keep going back. It's frustrating for a lot of people that aren't in those situations to understand.
I understand that, yeah.
And so on our end, we try to do so much in the community and do awareness to really get people to understand how complicated domestic violence is.
So anyway,
Every
if
relationship
you know
is
somebody
complicated.
out there, and what
Yes.
they're saying here, the numbers to call are on the screen. It's all the time. You don't have to wait till a convenient morning hour to call. No.
Whenever is safe is what we ask.
Say again.
Whenever is safe for them to call.
Whenever it's safe for them to call.
Yes.
Good. Linda, you've been associated with this now for how many?
Just about 30 years.
30 years. So
Yes.
you were there pretty much at the beginning, and so you've
10
seen
years
this.
after, yeah.
You've this huge changes that have come about, and it is important that you have this historical institutional knowledge as to going through all of this, and finding the funding is important too, because you don't operate for free. You have places where people can go and stay. Safe houses? I don't know what is that a correct term?
Shelter.
Shelter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We have shelter, and it has been such a learning experience for me. I feel like I am always learning something, and I think that society has learned more and more. Domestic violence is probably the tip of the iceberg is physical violence. And probably one of the last things that I learned is that the biggest commonality is social isolation, that the woman can no longer, or the victim can no longer, go with her friends. Her sister is unacceptable, her mother, he can't stand to be around her, and so on. So little by little, she finds that her support network is
diminishing. It's gone.
And diminishing.
Even in the days of Facebook and Twitter and social media, she still can't find that core group to say, I know that you're being wrong, we're going to help you. SafeNet is available. Is that play into any of this
Well,
today?
I think that
Or
as
time
that,
going to tell?
Time will tell, but I think that Sue is much more familiar with this than I am. But stalking now can be done with GPSs and and
any kind of
computer,
social media.
Yes, computer is not safe. It can be checked, for anyone who is knowledgeable about it. So she can be controlled more successfully than in generations past.
This is not an issue that is just germane to where we live or the United States. This is everywhere?
Yes.
Everywhere in the world?
There are no boundaries to domestic violence. No boundaries. This can affect anyone, any socioeconomic background, any religious background, men, women, any age, any educational background. We really see very, very diverse clients. And so what we try to do is, because there is, the stereotype and that stigma of what a victim looks like and who they are and who the abuser is. We really try to get rid of a lot of that. Because the more that people can see anybody can be a victim, then they're more willing to realize it can happen to either them personally or on a personal level.
The media plays into this. There's a lot of comments lately about how women are still in major movies, still playing the secondary role.
Yes.
They're still the ones that are going to tend the home fires while I'm out gathering and you're out cooking. Is that part of the whole culture of this? Is that we've been DNA'd through this for the last couple thousand years? You have 4 days to discuss that.
Yes. I would probably agree with some of that. I do think that in our society, men have certain roles, women have certain roles, and trying to, over the years, really minimize those roles, it's taken a lot of education. There's a lot of resistance still towards that. You mentioned just even in movies alone. And so that's something that, every day when we come into work, it's, what are we facing now? Last year in media, there was a lot of the different scandals in professional, leagues.
My
and
next
things.
question is the NFL. Let's be honest. The video caught him in the elevator.
Yes, and so that was something. It's as unfortunate as it is. It really kind of thrusts us into of the spotlight on, okay, well, who's doing what about this? What can we do about this? You know, our hotline calls and our shelter visits, you know, that really increases during that time, because I think a lot of people start to realize, oh my gosh, that could be me. It could get that bad. It doesn't always. You know, an abuser will do whatever they have to do to have that power and control. So unfortunately, sometimes it does get to that extreme physical level.
What kind of behavior manifests itself in an abuser, in the male, let's say, growing up? Did they come from a home where there was abuse and that was acceptable?
Oftentimes, they're much more likely to be an abuser if that has been modeled. But one of the things we've been focusing on lately, particularly after the NFL scandal, is that there is a culture that men grow up in. And, you know, it's like I've heard men called wusses or wimps or whatever. And, you know, if a man does, you know, in certain, particularly sports cultures, if they are, you know, unwilling to make misogynistic comments and so on, then that makes them less than a guy. You know, they're not one of the guys. So we believe that our real work is that we are not a social service, we're a social movement, and what we want to do is change the culture. Just like we somehow, we're along the line, got rid of littering and smoking in public places and driving while you're inebriated. It's like we would like to see violence against women and comments about violence against women as unacceptable.
Do you want to put a timeline on that? Have you made a dent? have you put it
years ago?
But I think you've made I think that you've made a noticeable dent. I really do. You started in 1975, if my math is correct. That's 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And since then,
there's still a lot of work to do, though.
Yes.
You know, we are at SafeNet. You know, Erie is very fortunate in that, you know, we've been around for a long time. But when it comes to domestic violence, that just hasn't been around for 40 years. You know, that was probably thousands and thousands of years before then. Yeah. So we realize that, yeah, we've made a little bit of an impact. Maybe people know, you know, who we are, or what we do, but really trying to eliminate domestic violence is probably going to take some time, and overall, just for a movement in itself, it's probably generations. So we're not going to give up.
No, and don't go away. No, don't go away. You depend upon for volunteers. People, can they volunteer for you? I'm sure they have to be vetted, though.
We have a wonderful volunteer program, and it's like to do any kind of direct service or, you know, have direct contact with clients. You know, of course, there's a screening process, and then we have 40 hours of education plus a practicum after that. Our volunteers do things like accompany people to court. They may assist in the shelter. They can assist in our support groups. And then we have many church groups and other groups that come to help us with the maintenance of our physical facility, which is incredibly helpful. We really could not do it without them.
I should mention, I think most everybody knows this, though, but if you do call, the confidentiality factor is tight. There is no, hey, guess who I got on the phone? You know that her husband is? You know, none of that happens. No. It is extremely boxed shut, lockdown.
Yes, and that has caused us some problems over the years. I think that now there's an understanding of it, but it is written into Pennsylvania law, into the statute, that we have absolute confidential privilege. So therefore, if a police officer drops a woman off and her name is Betty, and he calls 5 hours later and he'll say, you know, Betty left something in the car. It's like our staff say, I can neither confirm nor deny that Betty is there. And you know, we will, you know, post this on a bulletin board in case there's a Betty here. But it's absolute confidentiality, and that includes our records and so on. But it's, you know, it's been difficult sometimes, and we, you know, tell police that may be new to this situation, saying we would be breaking the law if we said, you know, Betty Jones was here.
I'll give it to Betty, just drop it in.
Yeah.
You mentioned going to court. That can be, I would assume, rather a frightening experience, because now you're really going to stand up, and you may be seen by the media, by the way. The cameras may be there, or your name could be in the newspaper, reported as a news item story here. And is it difficult to convince them you need to go and do this? You need to bring a sort of a finality to this abuse?
We never tell anybody what they need to do. You know, what we do is provide them options, because again, what's good for you might not be good for me, might not be good for Linda. So we really try to make every plan that we do, every safety plan, every, you know, the goals that our clients are working on, really unique to what their experience. And so, yeah, it can be really scary. You know, a lot of times with court, they might be facing, you know, their abuser or even family and friends. that have sided with the abuser. And so we do have advocates and volunteers that will be, the right hand of somebody going in, tell them, this is what's going to happen, really walk them through the whole process. So that way there's no major surprises or anything. And also having that advocate is really, really important, I feel. As an advocate, I feel, just because it really helps that person that might not have a strong voice at that time have a little bit stronger of a voice in getting through that difficult time.
I know, I like to ask people this. Did you ever think you'd be doing something like this? Is your background, your makeup, your culture, your DNA, your parents, your brothers, your sisters, your schooling, and everything that makes you Linda and you Suzanne? Well, you've been doing this now, so I know you were born to do this, okay? But you come on a little bit later. What is it that attracted you to what she's been doing?
I knew a lot of mainly women growing up and through time that were in different abusive situations, all different forms of abuse, because again, it doesn't just have to be the physical. So that, and I also just feel I'm an advocate at heart, and that I'm okay standing up for someone, again, that might not have a strong voice at that time. It's like, okay, I'll help them through this, and because I'm not in that relationship at the time. I don't have any reason to be in fear of the abuser. Whereas on their end, a victim's end or a survivor's end, a totally different story. And so it's, schooling and everything, it definitely, kind of brought me to this point. I enjoy it. So
There's I can't think of the movie right now, but there was a movie, I can't remember the name, it was where she decided she had enough and she was going to get back at the husband, I think it was, and I mean, she became extremely violent toward him, and I think that maybe in a Hollywood sense, it at least crystallized how difficult this is, that the woman became the heroine, so to speak, and said, I'm not doing this anymore. This is now, I'm going to take my life and I'm going to be in control of my life. You're not going to be in control. By the way, some of the terms that we're using here are physical abuse, of isolation, emotional abuse, economic abuse, intimidation, using children or pets. I like that one too, the children or pets. Using privilege, sexual abuse, threats. Any of those all work, right? Any and all. You've seen them all.
Yes, all. Yeah. And more so.
And more so.
What we do is, the line of work that we do, we call it domestic violence, but it's all about power and control.
Okay.
So if I was the abuser, it would be whatever I have to do to have that power and control over my victim. So if I have to use isolation, that's a really great way to have control over somebody. Get them get rid of anything that gives them their own sense of power, control, and independence. If it results into the physical, or even just threats, maybe I never have to raise my hand to my victim. I can just give them a look, or or make threats to them, or threaten that I'll contact authorities if you're a horrible parent, if this is what's going on, and I can really use anything I can as leverage to have that control. Children, pets, money, medicine, physical. And as Linda said, in the stalking and technology, it's really expanded over the years.
Yeah.
It's a really great way to have control over somebody.
Sure.
So a lot of our clients will come in and might have a cell phone, and it's like, well, that's a really good way to track somebody, to look in their cell phone, to see what's going on, to have access to that. And so it can make it really dangerous for a lot of our clients.
It's very difficult to see, but right between Linda and Suzanne, there is I think it's part of a quilt, is that correct?
Yes.
And I know it's difficult probably to see on camera, but what is that? The quilt project or projects? What is that?
Yeah, we do a lot of projects with our clients. Anything that and a lot of them are initiated by our clients. Things that they might find to be like therapeutic or healing. And so this was a piece that they did probably about 2 years ago, and it was some of our clients that got together and they made a quilt together. And there's different quotes, and what we did was we took pictures of it and blew it up in different quotes that that they had on that. But we're always doing a lot of projects with them, and whether it's in our support groups or in our shelter or counseling, and just trying to get them to really expand on what they've gone through, some of their feelings, and to work through that.
They said before, and it should be put this up a lot, that there is a website and there is a phone number that is available all the time, and that is, start with the website. It is
www.safeneterie.org.
all the time. And there's a phone number, local?
Area code 454-8161.
Okay, and that is
a 24-hour hotline.
24-hour hotline.
And
okay.
anybody that answers is a certified domestic violence advocate. So everybody's gone through extensive training and can really help. You know, so if you would call, you know, well, what's going on? You know, they assess safety, lethality. You know, how dangerous is your situation?
Yes.
You know, what are your resources? Do you have any resources? And really go from there and trying to come up with a plan to try to help that individual.
I have done this in the past, and maybe you have too. I'm not sure, camera on here. But I know that when our cell phones sort of we go, well, we don't want this one anymore, should I just throw it away? No, don't throw it away. Physically take it to SafeNet. Again, your address is?
1702 French Street.
1702 French Street. They will remove the SIM card, and they can then use that cell phone to give to?
We can give to any of our clients. We actually we give them out as 911 phones.
Okay.
So even if they are not, you know, a working phone, you can still dial 911,
Right.
and that's really important too for anybody in the community. If ever there's any kind of situation or danger, they can call 911 anytime, and response would help them.
And
There's also a collection box at the Verizon stores.
Thank you. I was just going to
Yes.
say it. Yeah.
Yep.
There's a collection box at the Verizon stores. You don't have to be technologically a whiz to say, gee, I don't know, there's a lot of stuff in here, those photos I have. They'll remove all of that. That'll be demagnetized, and they won't know anything about that at all. I hear you saying, too, that if you can work your way through the courts, you're going to be winning a lot. And when you go to court, they are your strongest advocates, and they've kind of blasted out the way and paved the way for you to do this, and have said, well, go ahead. You're about ready to hop in.
Yeah, well,
please hop in.
The thing is that the court is limited in what it
Sure.
can do, because it's like you can only get a protection order for recent physical violence.
Okay.
So you could be extremely emotionally abused, you know, your children abused and so on, and it would not qualify you.
You're getting
for,
a PFA, a protection from
Right.
abuse, which may be about as much use sometimes as the cap on this pen. I mean,
Right.
you know.
some use.
Yes, some use. Okay.
Right.
So what is the next step? Here you are. You've paved the way for 40 years. You've made incredible progress. You've changed the course of the river, so to speak, and you've brought to the point that I'm the hunter, and I don't have to come home and beat on you anymore. What's next? What do you see the next big thing, if there is, or is it incremental?
Well, I think it certainly is incremental, but one of the things that research is now proving is that not only our program, our last client who was murdered was in 1975. That was 1 year after the start of the shelter, and that was the woman who was shot down at the Kaufman's parking lot. She worked there. But we have had no other murder in Erie County that has had contact with SafeNet or Hospitality House. And that pretty much proves true all the way through with domestic violence programs, certainly in Pennsylvania. And to the degree that we can get hospitals and police who see really more domestic violence victims than we do,
Yeah.
the more we can network and collaborate with those systems, and the more we can talk about changing the culture, then I think that we are really going to make headway in eliminating
with
domestic
children.
violence.
Suzanne, did you fall down? Because I noticed yesterday you weren't bruised up here and down here.
Exactly.
Yeah. Is that reportable?
Yes, definitely. Especially after talking to the child. I mean, there's a lot more that goes with that, and a lot of other training. But yeah, it's to really try to, you know, a lot of what we're doing is really trying to get everyone in the community to understand that they will, you know, probably encounter some type of violence, trauma, domestic violence in their lifetime, and then what do you do with it? You know, especially with, you know, as Linda's saying, first responders. You know, we know the police see it all the time. You know, EMS, you know, the hospitals. And so, you know, we've been working a lot with them to try to get them to do the screening and understand what to look for. And but it's trying to get others on that same page. You know, family members,
Sure.
might be huge.
Yeah.
And how do you become an active bystander and not put that person in more danger?
I would assume that as you go to various conferences and big ones, I'm talking about regional conferences, you run into the people who do this and you have best practices
Yes.
exchanged. What would they be? What were some of them?
Best practices, I think, are, for one thing, is lethality assessment, and that would be
Say that again?
lethality
Lethality
assessment.
assessment. Okay.
And that is partnership with the police. It's a program that came out of Maryland, Baltimore area, Dr. Jackie Campbell. It's getting this police to ask 5 questions. You know, has he had a history of mental illness? You know, are there weapons in the house, and so on. And these 5 questions really, and then to get the victim on the phone with a domestic violence advocate at the shelter.
Okay.
And we do have that program with the Millcreek Police.
Do you have it with the city police?
Not yet.
Not yet.
We
Okay.
will.
And you're finding there's success?
Yes.
You're saying, I'm not a bad person.
Yes.
I'm not done anything wrong,
Right.
that I have a right to...
Yes, there's a lot of blame on victims. Oh, on the abuser's end. You made me do this. A lot of excuses. Oh, you're not that hurt. Oh, you're just a baby about this.
Yeah.
And so trying to get the victim to see, oh my gosh, there isn't anything wrong with me. These are his or her issues, the abuser's issues. So we do. There's a lot of that, and a lot of that is in the different movements that we're trying to do, in the different projects that we're trying to do, is trying to really get people to stop putting so much of the focus on the victims, start looking at the behavior of the abuser. But how can we best help?
I think from my perspective, and I've been associated in the news media for some time, that I have seen this change definitely, and it's because of what you two do. And it's because of SafeNet. Everybody knows who you are, I hope. And if you don't, you should, because the website, the phone numbers are all there. That has been incrementally changing, but
Yes.
changing. You have, as I said, you've changed the course of the river, okay? We got about 2 minutes left. You get the last word because you're the boss.
Okay.
And Suzanne is the Director of Outreach and Medical Programs.
Yes.
What's the medical programs? What does that mean?
Medical program, we're actually on call with all of the local area hospitals and a few clinics 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So anybody that is walking into the hospitals, they should be screened for domestic violence, and then on our end, if they wanted to see an advocate, we are on call with them 24 hours a day to go in and respond to that, whether it was a current crime or victim, victimization that they went through or something in the past. Anybody that wants to talk, we do that. We also provide a lot of trainings and materials, anything on that end, so with medical professionals.
Great.
Yeah.
Boss, you got the last word.
Okay. Last word is that we would like everyone to be an advocate for domestic violence victims, and we are very proud of this community. And the police, when I first started, were saying, well, we didn't do anything because they were both drinking or they weren't married, and it's like that has all changed. So there has been a lot of change, and I think that we need to be very grateful for that.
I think I can say this safely for the people watching. We're grateful for the two of you. And I have to just for a moment single you out, because you've been there almost from the beginning, and you were the one that got the tools out and said, we have to not do this anymore. This has to be, a spotlight has to shine on this. We have to make sure that the culture is changing. We have to make sure that the hospitals, the police understand what this is about, and we have to provide a shelter for these people until they can get their lives a little bit back together. Is that safe to say?
Well, let me say that no one is an island, and many,
Right.
many people were very much involved. Those Catholic, Jewish, and Protestant women that started the shelter, it's like, to me, it would have been like walking off a cliff. They had no money, they had no anything, and they were the courageous ones.
And you are too, both of you.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for being with us, everybody. I'm
Thank
Phil
you.
Fatica. Until next time, you take care. Don't forget, SafeNet, domestic violence, they're there for you. Next time, bye-bye.
You're watching the Millcreek Government Channel, powered by WQLN Public Media.